Hello everyone. We have a game with the black pieces against Harry 3719, rated 1825. He starts off by putting two pawns in the center, and we immediately attack one of them with our knight, and he defends. We now play e5 going into our Philidor setup, seeing if he wants to go down the queen trade line, which he does. They love the queen trade line, even as high as 1825. So they develop the bishop and attack a pawn. We're going to develop a bishop and defend the pawn and purposely double isolate our pawns, which normally we would never do, but here we like it. Okay, so he develops a bishop, which pins the knight. We want to plant our king on e7, but we don't want to block our bishop, so let's bring it outside of this little okay, so he develops his knight, which attacks a pawn which is defended. Now we want to go with our normal setup where we bring the knight b to d7, supporting the center, supporting the knight. He castles, which brings the rook on the file. We are going to move our king closer, protect everything, connect our rooks. It may look funny to you, but it's actually a nice arrangement for black. It's, you know, white can't really break through this, at least not easily. He would need to play f4, but he already put his knight there, so the most natural moves by white actually stop his best plan. So he develops his knight to the side, which hits the bishop. We could leave it there, we could move it. I guess we could leave it there, and then if he takes, now we have a nice pawn construction in the center. That looks reasonable. So I'm going to use this turn to kick the bishop and see what he wants to do. If he takes the knight, I'm going to retake with the pawn, creating a strong, stable center, which provides extra defense for my king. He moves his knight to the side, which clearly threatens this, but it's a one move, threat. I want to put my rook here anyway to apply pressure down my semi-open file now that I took this way with the pawn. Okay, so he's going here, but his knight's not wonderful here. Also, this pawn is not protected. I can improve my rook for free, perhaps, with a move like this. Okay, I mean, I may have to bring it back sooner or later once he kicks it, but let's see what he does. Okay, so it at least provokes this, and now we can go back. This move weakens these squares. So yeah, rook g4 was kind of like, you definitely don't need to play that. I just wanted to see what he would do. So if we forget about that move, forget it ever happened. Okay, he goes back with the knight, which maybe, tries to eventually push. I'm not really sure. We could try to undermine this. Now that our rook is here, we can also throw in a move like a6 and see what his intentions are. But let's start with the undermining, because he'll probably take it anyway. This is kind of our one weakness. We want to get it off the board. See, he takes anyway, and now look at this triangle formation. Our king is super safe. And now, I mean, he can try to break it down, but we have so many pawns here, it doesn't matter. I don't want to take and help his knight. I also don't want to push and lose a pawn, right? So let's bring our other rook in the game on the other semi-open file. That makes sense. Just maintain tension in the center. If he takes the pawn, we can improve our knight to an outpost. Okay. So now he moves his knight here, which doesn't threaten anything yet. Now if I go knight c5, how does he defend this pawn? Before he could put a rook behind it, but now he blocked that possibility. And then he can't counterattack me because this hits, this defends. Okay, so let's improve our knight. We can always recapture with the pawn. We don't need to put the knight there. So now I'm creating threats. I was also looking at h4, but it doesn't create as strong of a threat as knight c5. And you see, normally he would just put the rook here. So he counterattacks this double, with two things. But we're going to take this, which protects and hits the knight, and we can solidify the knight with a pawn. So he can't even kick it with a rook. Also, his knight's hanging right now, so he doesn't have time for any of that anyway. So he protects his knight, but this looks terrible now all of a sudden. It weakens the dark squares tremendously. He's also falling for a fork. We can also kick the knight and get a really strong center, but in light of we have a fork here, he's probably going to take this pawn if we do that. Well, maybe not, because if we take this, maybe he won't get the knight back. He'll probably just move it back. If we want to keep this pawn and get the fork in, maybe go b5 now. Kick the knight away. He has to go, I don't know, somewhere. Let's do that. Let's kick his knight away. Our rook will stare at the king. And when we go here, he won't be able to take here with a piece. I don't want to give him any counterplay or anything. I just want to outright win and be better the whole time. I always like to limit my opponent's win conditions if I can. Full map control. He just goes back to where it came from, and now we hit him with the boom. And that hurts because the rooks are definitely better than the knight. So let's take the rook in the corner, and now we have beautiful stuff. If we take this and he takes, we immediately open our rook. This also looks super nice and bindy. I mean, we can push the center. First, let's improve a piece for free. He might defend it, but we can cement it. So let's cement our rook because it's super strong here. Okay, he pushes past, which releases tension in the center and creates a passed pawn for us. We don't want to take and help his knight, but if he takes, he'll help our king, so we don't mind his move. I like h4 as a move. d5 is a move. a5 is a move. Rook over is a move, but I kind of want to do this. But maybe I should provoke him to take. So let me go throw in a forcing move. Why is it forcing? Because now I'm threatening to win the pawn. So it's not a waste. Okay, so now that he takes, why did I do that? Because my king controls these light squares, and now I can easily push these pawns with the king support, roll this up the board, right? Kick the knight away from... I probably won't kick it because I want to restrict it, so I probably will leave the pawn on d5 for now. And now I can maybe, I don't know, get this rook. Okay, he moves the knight anyway. It looks like it traps my rook, but my rook is defended. I guess he wants to kick it and not allow this. I'm not really sure. But this move undefends these squares. I can easily go here or here now. This one is like a one, if I do the pawn first and he goes back, I won't, and he goes knight back, I won't have this rook move. So I think I want to throw this in first because this also looks really annoying for him. Yeah, so this is just really just miserable for white, totally lost. You never want to play a position like this. It feels really bad. It's super hard to defend. This knight, this rook and pawn creates a bind on the position. This is coming in, the knight undefended this pawn, so it's hanging with the second rook. Yeah, it's really bad. And our king is in the center, but it's perfectly placed in this endgame. And this happened from the double isolated pawn line. So it looks like, what the heck is black doing? Messing up his structure like this, like, it's crazy. But is actually not bad. It's very solid. It's very hard to attack, and Black just has easy play once he learns the ideas. And there, just a resignation. You see, 28 moves against an 18-25 serious opponent. So let's go over the game. As you know, we play the Philidor with this move order. It avoids things like King's Gambit and so forth. So we do it like this. We stake our claim in the center. He takes, going down the queen trade line. We take, accepting. Okay, so now the two of their favorite moves is this and this. Bring out one of the bishops, right? Attack stuff, get developed. And our response to both of those is the exact same. It's bishop to e6. Doesn't matter which move he plays, we play this anyway. So he chooses bishop c4, and we go bishop e6. And this is a 28 move game against an 18 whatever, and we have 0 mistakes, 0 blunders, 1 inaccuracy, 15 center pawn loss, 96%. So oops, so the Philidor is good stuff. See, I keep telling you to try it. So we bring out the bishop, forced move, and this, you know, like how's he gonna attack it with the knight? He can't. How's he gonna attack it with the bishop? He's not. Usually, the only thing they do is bring this knight out, and it attacks this pawn one time. And that's never a problem because it's always defended at least one time. And that's if he doesn't take your knight and support it with a pawn, right? So you're never winning this e-pawn. But someone who's never looked at this before and they see it for the first time on the board, they're like, ooh, double isolated pawns, let's attack it. Develop with a threat, it makes the most sense. But it's actually not a very good move. So he develops the other bishop, and like I said, when we double our pawns, we do want the king here protecting everything, but we don't want to block our own bishop. So we bring the bishop out first, development in center. Then we bring the knight out, development in center. And now staring at the king, king safety. The king is perfectly safe here. Knights cannot jump in because of this doubled pawn, which is actually good, not bad. This knight can't attack the king because of the pawn again. He doesn't have a light square bishop to attack this pawn because that's the reason the pawn is here, because he gave it up to create this structure. So there's no way to attack this weak pawn, right? It's not weak actually. So none of these pawns are weak, and if they're not weak, your king is safe. And whenever he trades more stuff, like he did in the game, it just, as you saw in the game, strengthens the pawn construction, and then your king becomes totally safe. Because once you go down the queen trade line, there's no queens, you know, by definition, so your king should be pretty safe in lots of lines. So he goes for this, and we don't care. We just see what he wants to do with the bishop. If he doesn't take the knight and retreats, we can just pawn storm him and knock around his pieces. So he trades, but now this pawn is always protected by a pawn. That releases these two pieces to go do what they want because they don't have to babysit. That's why we like when they do this. So he goes to the side, which doesn't make sense. It would make sense if you had access to this square on f5, but you don't. So going for this one move thing is obviously dumb because, you know, I'm not going to let you do that. And once I go here, why is your knight here? So this was a pretty weird move. Like, it doesn't lose or anything. It's just like, I don't like it. Okay. And now this was a weird move. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but you don't need to do this. You can just kick the knight and force matters. You can improve this knight and attack the pawn. But I threw this in because he has to respond one way or another. Maybe he should bring the rook over. I don't know. But he does this, whatever. And now he has to reroute his knight. And we play this move because once he moves his knight, like he doesn't want his knight here, it's terrible. So he's going to move it eventually. And when he does, it's going to release control over h4. And we want to go h4 ourselves, take this pawn, recapture the rook. And then our rook will be in there. But we don't want to do it immediately. So you don't have to do it right now. I just made this one move. It also stops him from gaining further space on this side and blocking my rook, and I'm always ready to do it. It's not like there's anything pressing on this side of the board that I need to be doing, so it's fine. This is a forced move, and now we have beautiful protection. And also, this pawn here may look weak to you, but it's not, because the only thing he can ever do is put 2 rooks there, and that's 2 attackers. We always have the king as a default defender. All we need to ever do is add 1 rook anywhere. We don't even need to use the knight. Maybe you can even push it at some point. You know, it's not realistic to think you're going to take this pawn, so it's not a weakness. And now we just do the most logical thing, and that's bring our only inactive piece into the game, staring at his king on a semi-open file. And they say this is a blunder. I mean, a blunder. Minus 2.8. Oh, it's weird because apparently this is the way to punish it, but going from minus 0.8 to minus 2.8 when you don't lose anything but this pawn. I mean, when he made this, I thought it was a mistake because of my move, but I wasn't like, whoa, completely losing. Minus 3. Okay, so we play my move because he can no longer defend what he wants. Then it goes to minus 4. I'm just curious, if he does put the rook here, is there some weird tactic if I take for him? He moves the knight somewhere weird, like, not really, because you just take it. Yeah, okay. Okay, so he moves his knight, attacking my pawn, but this doesn't work because we defend backwards. And I kick the pawn with b5 so that I can fork him without losing this pawn. Engine saying, hey guy, just move the pawn and do the same thing. That does make sense. Although I do like this pawn construction, I don't want to move it. I like the way it is. So I'll stick with my minus 5. And we'll go with b5. So this was my one inaccuracy because they wanted me to push the central pawn, like it makes a difference. So savage. Okay, so he's forced to move back. We go get the fork, free stuff. Free stuff. And now here, you're looking for moves, good moves. Either you're looking for targets that you can attack, or ways to improve your position, / bind him. So if you look at his thing, there's nothing to attack, except if you double stack on the C pawn, he might be able to defend it with a rook sideways or with a knight backwards and the king. So it's not really a weakness. It's just one thing that's going to tie him down, and then you can try to attack something else, create a second target. There's also this pawn, and then he captures, and then that pawn's a little loose, the knight's a little loose. So those are some targets. Other than this and this, and maybe this, you don't really have targets. So what we do is we combine, we hit a target, and it comes with a positional bind idea. So even if this knight wasn't here, it was like, I don't know, here on f2, and we weren't hitting it, we're still going to do this move and create the positional bind. It just happens to come with tempo, so it's even better. Okay, so we just solidify. Oops, what the heck? And then we create a threat because that's a target, because he disconnected its protection from its other pawn. So we target it and we force this transformation. He moves his knight, but that undefends. We recognize the drawback of the move. Undefends this square as well as this one. Both of these happen to be good moves. So you can see how the drawbacks are what has changed, and suddenly what your best move is are connected. And he just resigns because there's nothing to do about me just dominating his king here and pushing through the center. So really good game. 28 moves, 96% accuracy. I'm getting better and better at this Philidor queen trade line. I'm remembering more of the ideas because it keeps happening more frequently, and that's really the key to remembering stuff. Is try to learn only the things that are happening in your games. Everything else you learn, you're gonna forget it because you're not applying it. It's not fresh. You're not reinforcing it. At least that's how it's been working with me. So give the Philidor a try. Queen trade line is good for us. Good luck in your chess. Submit your game in Discord. Goodbye.